And so now everyone's had their sugar hit. It is a great privilege to be on this panel of local legends. You've seen some local legends on the screen, and you've got more in front of you. And as I say, this is the other connection where we've got educators, we've got TAFE, we've got university, and now we've got industry, to really share what this region has to offer and what jobs we have in this region. And before we go into questions, I thought it would be useful for everyone to introduce themselves. So I'll start, Andrew Eves-Brown. So I'm CEO and project manager for a project called Project Turbine on the coast. I've been on the coast now for about 18 years and really worked through the whole of food and agribusiness and also worked at council. And now very lucky enough to be the chair of the RJC and also working with Jackie Steele on the RDA board. So it's fantastic to be here and going to really enjoy sharing the story of all these industries. So I'll hand over to Katie.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Katie Healy. I'm the Senior Director of Strategy and Planning for the Sunshine Coast Hospital and Health Service. So I feel like I am so excited to talk to you, and I feel like I will be looking forward to welcoming all your students into our workforce in the next couple of years. So I've been on the coast for maybe 4 or 5 years, having made the move from Brisbane prior to COVID, I will say. I saw the light before then. And a clinician by trade, postgraduates in health administration. And like the journey that all of our key speakers, particularly Wanda, mentioned, you take one step, and then I changed my career path and then went somewhere else. And so I'm the product of great educators. So thank you for having me tonight.
Hi, my name's Beck Wall. I work for the Food and Agribusiness Network here on the Sunshine Coast. We are a member-based organisation and we have members across City of Moreton Bay, Sunshine Coast, Noosa and also Gympie. I've been in the role, not very long, only since about June last year, but absolutely loving being a part of the food and agribusiness community here on the coast. What I most love about working here on the coast, I've been back for about 2.5 years, is that just the collaboration. You know, there's a number of people up here that we collaborate with regularly, and I think that's really the strength of being on the Sunshine Coast and being part of the business community here. So yeah, that's me.
Evening everybody, my name's Tim Kelly. I'm an aeronautical engineer. I moved to the Sunshine Coast in about 2016 from the Netherlands. I'm Australian, like don't hold it against me, it's not my fault. I'm director of the Manufacturing Excellence Forum, which really followed in Fan's footsteps. So it's an industry group, it's a not-for-profit organisation, and it's really about building more made in Australia and very specifically more made on the Sunshine Coast. So, yeah.
Oh, do I need to?
Yeah, you can have 2 if you want.
I don't need to. 1 will be enough. Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name's Amanda Yeates. I'm an engineer and I am the CEO at SunCentral. SunCentral are the development managers for the Maroochydore City Centre. So Maroochydore City Centre is the largest greenfield CBD in the country. My speciality is infrastructure delivery, so it's a fantastic gig for me. At completion, we will have invested $4 billion in the Maroochydore City Centre and we will employ 20,000 people.
Thanks, Amanda. Good evening, guys. My name's Kurt Jones. I'm 21 and I have lived on the coast for 3 years. I moved up from the Deception Bay, Burpengary area when I finished school, and I am a proud graduate ex-student of a flexi school, so a special assistance school for disengaged youth, and I'm now the founder and CEO of a national non-for-profit that engages youth and young adults in conservation, and that led me to being the Young Citizen of the Year for the Sunny Coast last year and also winning the Queensland Young Achiever. So great to be here.
And he's only 21.
As I said, a fantastic panel full of absolute local legends. And so now we're just going to go through and ask a few questions and really share information about their industries and what opportunities there are in those industries. And then hopefully at the end we'll have time for some questions from the floor. So please send all the hard ones to Tim. So Katie, we've seen from all the slides, we've seen that this region is growing at a huge huge rate. We've also seen that health and the health service is one of the highest employers on the coast. So how do you see, or what do you see the focus over these coming years as we continue to grow so fast?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think the focus for us is to grow our own. We are a growing region. We are building our relationships with UniSC. Griffith is our medical school, TAFE as well. We have TAFE, UniSC and Griffith on site. But I think to be able for us to provide great care to our community, we must grow our own. And so I think we will be focused heavily as a health service with engaging with our education partners to make sure that the courses and the pathways into work for us, which are not always through tertiary means or vocational means. There's many ways to get into health, but we are certainly going to be trying to encourage that all the pathways into our workforce. Does that answer it?
It did indeed. But more so, obviously a lot of people within see health and they think doctors, nurses.
Yeah, sure.
Please share with everyone the actual vast career opportunities that there are within health.
Yeah, oh look, I could talk all day about this. Everybody thinks Sunshine Coast Health, doctors, nurses, allied health. But we have everybody. We have lawyers, we have project managers, we have accountants, we have electricians, we have business analysts. I could go on. And really, I think our biggest workforce is nursing, and we're projected to continue for that to be the trajectory. But our second biggest workforce is our administration and clerical workforce. So that really ranges from our school leavers who want to finish school and get straight into the workforce, and they want to take on administrative duties, so maybe some reception type work or front patient facing work, all the way through to our managers, our team leaders, our directors and onwards. So I think if you have the inkling or the desire to help health, the healthcare of our region, then I'm sure we can find a job that matches you.
Thanks, Katie. And you've got a whole audience of educators and who are really looking after our future future employees. And so, what's your sales pitch for the health service? What would you pitch to the teachers of why their students should get involved in health?
I would pitch that our Sunshine Coast Health has got so much flexibility and agility. Back to Wanda's point, and it really resonated with me about that next step. I think we are the largest employer of the region, but there are just so many avenues that you can support your students to choose. So, for example, if somebody starts a nursing degree and they finish their nursing degree and they think, nursing's not for me, they can move in so many different ways, and staying in health, they may want to do some patient care virtually, they maybe want to slide into non-patient facing but clinical work that requires their degree but isn't nursing at all. Similarly, they may want to pursue their singing career so they can work part-time and then do their singing career otherwise while they run their startup. So we have so much flexibility and agility to support the 17 careers that they may want to take, and hope 12 or 13 of them are in our healthcare. So I think understanding that whilst you may work for a health service, there are so many different titles that are not your typical nurse, doctor or physiotherapist.
It's a long elevator ride.
Sorry. I could talk forever. Sorry.
Beck, again, a bit like health, food and ag very much gets that tradition of, actually you're talking about farmers, you're talking about produce. Please can you explain to the audience sort of the vast array of opportunities within a food and agribusiness?
Yep. I think that it's really exciting on the Sunshine Coast particularly, and the wider region, is that we do have such a vast array. So we have, from a membership point of view, we've got artisanal producers, we've got food manufacturers, regenerative farmers, There's a whole range of people, craft distillers, all of those different kind of industry within the food and agribusiness industries. And off the back of that, from a career perspective for young people, or kids as Wanda wants us to say, we really, there can be food science, it can be, sales and development, it can be about so many different things. And all of those things are really quite exciting because, depending on where that business is at, they might scale or they might be smaller, and those needs might change over over time. I mean, things like, product development, for example, there might, we've got like Sunshine and Sons, which is a craft distiller who make award-winning spirits here on the coast. They're always looking at product development and new different ways and collaboration and that they can make. I think a couple of weeks ago, you might have if you're on their mailing list, they just made an Easter, hot cross bun gin. And it's now a limited edition. So who would have thought that you can get a hot cross bun gin? But that's what these businesses are doing here on the coast. It's incredible. So that's an example of that. Another one is Montville Coffee. They're out there innovating in that product space because they want to make sure that they've got, really sustainable packaging, sustainably and ethically sourced products, and all of those kind of things. So it means that there's a whole product development opportunity out there. When these businesses start to scale, all of a sudden you start stepping in that you need business development people or you need marketing people to start talking to those markets. So in the food and agribusiness industry, across what we offer, there's so much, you can basically do so many different things. And with being in a small, if you are in a small to medium-sized business as well, I think one of the things that I picked up from some of the stats I think that Tracy was saying was the fact that they these youngsters coming through just love that diversity and they loved to be able to see things. What better to do that in a small to medium-sized business that's on a growth trajectory, and then all of a sudden you get it at a ground level, and then the next minute you're taking on a market in Norway or something like that. So it's really quite exciting, and I really do think that outside of those traditional, because of course we've still got traditional producers and beef farmers and all of that kind of thing, but there's just so much more. Even agritourism as well. All of a sudden with agritourism, you're opening up a direct link between the producer and the consumer themselves, so they can actually see people, talk to people, have them taste their product. In that whole agritourism sector, which also relates to hospitality jobs and, event management and all of those things. So it's actually, even though it's food and agribusiness, it's actually quite an array. And when you look at the actual roles in our industry, it's quite incredible the amount of, what you've got there.
And you mentioned a lot of those traditional industries. One that people don't always relate to in food and agri is technology. Obviously, and some of you might not know, but Brisbane, last 2 weeks, just hosted Evoke Ag, which is a agricultural, it's all about tech in agriculture and some of the amazing businesses down there and startups. But Beck, how would you describe how technology is taking over a lot of that food space?
Oh, it's incredible to see, and we've got a lot of our fan members who are actually out there and doing it. So we have a regenerative farm business, Eastwell Farms, that's in the Noosa region, and they use sensor-based rain gauges that are digital to help them to reduce their overall water usage, but then also that makes the soil healthier, and then that increases the health of their crops that they're growing, which they're growing for their cows to eat. And then if the cows are healthier, then all of a sudden the people consuming that meat is healthier, and it's and it's organic and all of those kind of things. And shout out to Eastwell Farms, if you're not eating their beef, you should be. But that's one example of it. There's there's so many more, like McCormick's Gourmet Garden, who's one of our bigger employers here on the coast as well. They're using automated processing. They're using AI for quality control. So all of a sudden, in a big business like that, that means a lot, because they're trying to increase their production efficiency, but at the same time they need to keep that level of quality control. So to be able to do that through technology is just incredible. Another example, Walker Seafood. They actually use satellite tracking to do better, more sustainable fishing practices. I mean, who would have thought that a company here on the coast is doing satellite tracking to track to that kind of thing? It's quite incredible the amount. Sunshine and Sons as well, again, they're using technology to distill their spirits in a more environmentally friendly way to create less of an impact on the environment. There's all sorts of things from those perspective. Then if you look at some of the consumer stuff that happens as well, there's a brand called Surge, which I'm not so sure whether people have heard of Surge, but Surge help venues like this to, using AI-based technology to actually have a better experience for people who are coming to a venue like this. And it's really important. It might work for people who are, who have special needs. So whether there's a disability or whether they might be neurodivergent or something like that. And it's incredible. But these are being driven by consumer demands. The one thing that I did learn out of OCAG, which was quite amazing, but not surprising when you do think about it, because of the weather events and because of everything that we go through, mainly in that primary production space, Australia is we're one of the best at innovating, but then also adopting. So, some of the talks that were had down there in terms of what people were doing was incredible, but to sit up there and actually have primary producers, people who are producing, organic beef and things like that, and telling them about these scientific-based things and technology-based programs that they've been involved in and what it means for the health of the land, the health of the animals, and the health of the products that come out at the end, which is better for us as human consumers. It's just it's quite amazing what's going on. I even saw a drone that's called Sky Kelpie that was basically herding sheep, and it was at a place that was 1,000 kilometres away. And it was just incredible, some of the stuff. So technology is definitely in the food and agribusiness sector as well.
And you mentioned it is healthy crops, healthy animals, but that's also healthy humans, and it really goes towards the health industry of actually making sure that we are what we eat, and the healthier we eat, the healthier we become. I've got the opportunity while sitting here to ask you to talk about my business or our business, and it would be remiss of me not to. Is that Turbine is a big project for the coast. It's a game-changing project for the coast. So it'll be great to really understand from fans' perspective is really what it's going to bring to the region and the ability with both innovation, education, and scale-up.
So for those of you that don't know, Turbine is Australia's first collaborative food and beverage manufacturing precinct that's being developed, and it's being developed here on the coast. And it's going to be it's basically enabling businesses to grow and to scale, and to do that in a more economic way than what they normally can do. The infrastructure is being built down in the Caloundra area. And it's going to be state-of-the-art facilities. So they will have access to shared services such as packaging, manufacturing, bottling, storage, R&D, testing, sensory testing lounges, all of that kind of thing, as well as soft skills. Like there's the opportunity for like HR and that kind of thing as well. It's going to be a bit of a game changer for those businesses that normally would have had to go out there and find their own funding in, I would imagine, the millions to try and get to be able to scale up and produce at that kind of level. But what we're most excited about at FAN, and probably Andy as well, because Andy was one of the founders of FAN, is the collaborative side of it. So if you can imagine bringing producers, manufacturers, innovators, R&D together, and actually bring those people together and just imagine putting them all under one roof and just see what you can actually produce. Like, it's going to be so exciting. We're excited because we get to move in as well, but it's just that whole shared space. The other big side of it that Andy mentioned is also about training, because it's going to be a facility where we will be able to have training and actually see all of this stuff happening in action and have those training facilities on site as well. It really is, I think it really is a game changer, and it will be a game changer particularly for those businesses that want to be able to go out there, try those new markets, whether it's just another region, another state, or even another country, but actually be able to do it without putting those millions and millions and millions of dollars and actually produce the product first and then test it and then actually be able to make it. And then it's great because then you hope down the track that once they're 5 years in or however long, that they will then go off and create their own manufacturing facilities and potentially help others out along the way. So, but we're really excited about that collaboration piece. And I suppose from a Sunshine Coast perspective and also the wider regions, it's really going to put the Sunshine Coast on the map for being, a place that can attract investment, that it can attract jobs and, innovation, all of that kind of thing. And I think it's so much more than just for the food and beverage industry or food and agribusiness industry. I think it's actually going to be a game changer for the Sunshine Coast from an economic development point of view as well.
Sounded like my elevator pitch. That was great. And that really links and flows through to yourself, Tim, really well with manufacturing. We talked food manufacturing, but within the manufacturing environment, again, digital and manufacturing is really merging, and there's a lot of blurred lines there. And obviously, the new phrase, advanced manufacturing. Can you give us some insights of advanced manufacturing on the coast, and obviously all the great work that you're doing and MEF's doing?
Sure, thanks, mate. So I'll speak to this as best I can, both from an MEF's perspective, which of course industry group, so we have a lot of engagement with a lot of different manufacturers across the coast, but also from my day job, which is chief engineer of an autonomous air taxi startup. So, and we've hired about 15, 16 people over the last few months, which has been heavy, but it's fine. We haven't died, so that's a good start. I think we published a 32-page report, which is great if you want to go to sleep, about the macroeconomic condition of the Sunshine Coast from a manufacturing perspective. There's about 1,500 manufacturers here on the coast now. They employ about 10,000 people. Our region, when you normalise the data on a per capita basis, our region, our sleepy little retirement village tourist trap, is going to overtake Queensland on a per capita basis in about 3 years by the number of manufacturers that we have in our region, how many people they employ, how much they export, how much they output from a revenue perspective. We're on par to take them over soon, and that really needs to continue, and advanced manufacturing is really going to be the thing that drives a lot of that. What we do see in the data is that our productivity per worker is not going up on a state basis or locally as much as it needs to. It's pretty stagnant, and that's because on the whole, Australia's ability to adopt new technologies in manufacturing is not as good across the board as it must be. Like it has to be. So companies like Kilcoy Global Foods, and Bevan's sitting over there, those guys are killing it. They just opened a new facility in Caloundra West, Caloundra South, Coolwa Park area, 200 people, highly automated. And that automation, what it does, it enables them, enables their people to leverage themselves to produce more at a higher quality level in shorter lead times. And that's really fundamentally what most frontier technologies are doing. So when we talk about advanced manufacturing, whether that's computer vision, or it's robotics and cobotics, or it's generative AI, or it's just digitizing your systems so that you've got a human resource information system so that it does the job of, that's not the right way to say it, that way people feel like their jobs are being taken. It enables people to do significantly more work with the same amount of hours in the day. It's a great tool for them to leverage them. And we have to get our heads around that. Most of the time people are like, oh, don't do automation, that's taking jobs away. The people don't exist. We don't have them. And when trying to bring them here, as you guys know, it's really, really hard. There's nowhere for them to live, right? Rents are astronomical, so we have to do things really, really differently. So I don't know if that was more of a rant than an answer. Sorry.
But with that evolution of skills changing, what do you think from the audience that we've got? What are the skills that we need our students to have?
So for me, there are two really good, clear pathways that we have. One of them is being a mechatronics engineer, which is taught at UniSC, mostly out of Moreton Bay. And the other one is the Diploma of Applied Technology, which Mr. Gates over there teaches down at Eagle Farm. I hope we get more of that up here. Those, for me, are the two clearest pathways to go and affect change in and around advanced manufacturing in a very direct sense. I wish that our nation taught manufacturing. We don't. That's mental. We don't really teach advanced manufacturing. There are 3 manufacturing engineers on the Sunshine Coast. They all come from some damp island in the north. This guy's one of them. The other one's Gil Harkness from Queensland Government, and the other one's Rob Tomlinson, who's a continuous improvement engineer. We don't teach manufacturing in our country. I think that's mental. Personally, I'm slightly biased. So mechatronics and Diploma of Applied Tech is really the go-to as far as that's concerned. There are micro-credentials that are coming out that are very contemporary education in this space. There isn't a lot of it. It's really, really hard, especially the generative AI stuff and cybersecurity and those kinds of things. They move really quickly. But, Cisco, Microsoft, those kinds of organizations have good micro-credentials in those places. What I think industry isn't sophisticated enough to bring people in and try to teach them advanced manufacturing. They're generally just trying to survive and not die. We need an injection of talent really to help industry to be uplifted so that we can be more nationally and globally competitive. Our education system has to lead that. It has to. If you look at what happens through Silicon Valley, between Stanford and the talent coming out of Stanford and then the investment that was attracted to the region, that's what created that cluster. It was the talent started that cluster. That was the thing that initiated it. And we know that. We just need to go and do it, which is, I'm not trivialising that, it's really, really hard, but we need to go do it.
And so you previously mentioned sort of your day job of creating air taxis, which is bringing that to the coast is just phenomenal. And so congratulations on that. But in your spare time, which you don't have much, you've been doing an amazing project at UniSC with eVTOL. Really love you to expand on that so everyone understands what you're doing. Again, amazing project.
Yeah, thank you. So these two things obviously are pretty closely tied together. So the eVTOL student team, so eVTOL stands for Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Vehicle. So if you think you go back to the Future, right, and you've got your DeLorean, and shout out to Robbie and the DeLorean project. But when Doc, went to the future, and then the wheels folded up under, and it's got the thrust vectoring and all this kind of stuff, that's kind of like an air taxi, right? You don't really need a road at that point. You can just up and off you go. So that's basically what we're talking about. You have an app on your phone, and you say, I'm in Maroochydore CBD, and I want to go to Brisbane CBD, and this thing comes and lands in front of you, and you jump in it, and then you kick back, and you put some music on, or you bring your laptop out, and it flies you to Brisbane CBD in around about 20 minutes, and it costs you $50 to $100, and you get out and you go about your business. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to develop fundamentally. So there's obviously a commercial approach to that, which is what we're doing with Fate Corporation. It's F-A-I-T, not F-A-K-E. My enunciation on it is not as good as it could be. I apologise for that. That's foreign invested, mostly out of the Middle East and Asia. We couldn't get a whole lot of investment from the Western world. Getting investment in hardware from Western investors is really, really hard, which is another big inhibitor to manufacturers. But what we're doing with the university and with a bunch of local high schools, so Grammar School, Flinders, Nick and the Industry School as well, big partners in this project, is we're developing with students this autonomous air taxi. So there's around about 20 or so of us at the moment. We've got a whole bunch of different industry mentors that we pay to come and spend time mentoring students on how to develop an aircraft, and not just an aircraft, but one that will fly itself fundamentally. So yeah, that's kind of where we're up to. So one of our partners is a fantastic company up in Coolum called One Composite. You guys have probably heard of Zone RV. They're about 200 FTE, Zone RV, but there's about 4 businesses that Dave Bigger owns up there. They have about 400 FTE. They've got the biggest 3D printer in the Southern Hemisphere. It's 25 metres long and 5 metres wide and 2 metres high, and it can punch out about a tonne of plastic print in about half a day or something like that. They don't print parts to put on their caravans and boats and planes or whatever. They print out the tooling. And then you machine the tooling and you lay up composite into the tooling, and then you can make a composite piece, like carbon fibre composite, that's as big as half a car or half a caravan. So instead of having 100 parts that you have to assemble to make your half a caravan, you have 1. That's advanced manufacturing because of how much it reduces the labour component into that piece part. So we're working with them. They're showing the students how to do a whole bunch of stuff, including how to run that big printer and make carbon fibre parts, which we're going to use on this drone, this eVTOL.
Fantastic, Tim. Always very exciting to hear what's going on, and hopefully it's always news to me what's going on in the region. So hopefully this is an opportunity for everyone in the room to really understand the advances in this region. I never knew that we had 3 engineers on the panel, which is yeah, something's definitely gone wrong in the world. STEM never used to be like this. But Amanda, you've talked previously just about the Maroochydore CBD and the biggest greenfield CBD in Australia. Really love you to dig deeper into that and really what it means for the Sunshine Coast. This has been a vision for many years and now it's starting to come out of the ground.
Certainly. I want to start by saying, though, I think what I heard Tim say was you can take your DeLorean from Maroochydore to Brisbane in half an hour. That would be 20 minutes. That would be really useful for me next Friday. So could we set that up, please? Thank you. Great. We'll sort it out. I'm sure you know how. Can anybody remember the last time $4 billion was invested on the Sunshine Coast in a development? No? Well, that's good. I'm glad no one said yes because it's never happened before. So to put it in context, if you look at Queen's Wharf in Brisbane, I mean, Brisbane crowed about that, about how fantastic it was and how big it was. That development was $3.6 billion. So what we are building in the Maroochydore City Centre is more significant than what they've built at Queen's Wharf. Queen's Wharf, when it is completed and fully up and running, will employ 8,000 people, mostly in tourism, hospitality and gambling. We will employ 20,000 people in the Maroochydore City Centre, and we will employ those people in knowledge industries, health and professional services. So I think we are on the cusp of an absolutely enormous opportunity here on the Sunshine Coast. And I think Mayor Frank's comments earlier about the biospheres are really critical because the other thing is that we have a culture on the Sunshine Coast where we care a lot about the environment. So we are going to have people who are going to think about development, who are going to think about the sort of work that we are doing in a more sustainable way. What I really want to talk about though today is about the data opportunities that we have in the Maroochydore City Centre. So as I mentioned, we've got health services there. We're building the Maroochydore Private Hospital. The University of the Sunshine Coast has taken 2 floors of that hospital and they will be doing clinical testing there. Does anybody remember that story about Elizabeth Holmes? She was the lady who scammed all that money and she told everybody she could do those really fancy health assessments with just the prick of a finger. The speed of the data that is available on the Sunshine Coast and in the Maroochydore City Centre and the sorts of testing that the university will do, I suspect is going to make the sort of things Elizabeth told everybody that she could do a reality right here on the Sunshine Coast. And I think one of the really interesting things, and we have, Councillor Terry talked about the data cable, the undersea cable, and he also talked about the investment that Google is making. Now, NextDC has a very small data centre there. It's on Maud Street. I don't know if you've driven past and seen it. And they also have purchased a block within the Maroochydore City Centre to develop their Stage 2 data centre. Now, their original plans for that data centre were to commence construction in 2028. And something's happened in the last 6 months because they've pushed us to hurry us along and they now have a desire to commence construction of that data centre in the middle of this year. That's a 3.5-year acceleration. If anyone's ever built a house and said, hey, listen, I'd like to accelerate it by 3.5 years, you will understand how difficult that is. And so something big is about to happen here on the Sunshine Coast. So the reason I want to really focus on data is because there are 9 undersea cables that come in on the eastern seaboard outside of Maroochydore, and all 9 of those come into Sydney. And then the only other place that there is an undersea cable is here on the Sunshine Coast at Maroochydore, and we will have a second one when Google comes along. Now, data and the speed of data and the security of data are going to become increasingly significant. And if I could urge anybody in this room, all of you are educators, if I could urge you to do anything, I would say every single student that you send out into the world must be AI literate. Because AI, every single profession in the future is going to need some understanding of AI and how to use it. A lot of the professional services that we are already seeing in the city centre are taking advantage of the high-speed data that is available there. They are using AI to look at trends. You know, they are... Do you know what? There's professional services companies in the Maroochydore City Centre who are buying data on your credit card usage. It doesn't have your name on it, which is fortunate, because then my husband would know how many pairs of shoes that I bought. But it does give trends. It does tell you where people are spending money and where they're investing. And I think without exception, every single sector are going to need people who have AI literacy for the future.
Thanks, Amanda. And obviously touched on one of my questions, which was what are those skills? So AI is definitely one of them. I know that you're not always able to share, and we've spoken about NextDC, we spoke about Google, but it'd be really great to understand who are the people coming to the CBD? How is it going to change over the next 2, 3, 5 years?
So we've got two quite large buildings under construction in the CBD at the moment. They're both in excess of 10,000 square metres. The last time a building of 10,000 square metres or more was built on the Sunshine Coast was in 2017, and that was Kentucky. So it's been a long time since we've had commercial office construction occurring on the Sunshine Coast, and there's a real shortage. We are out there talking to an enormous variety of different organisations. A lot of them are knowledge-based industries, given the sort of investment we're talking about. So $4 to $6 billion will be invested in the Maroochydore City Centre. An additional somewhere between $10 and $20 billion will be invested in the intergenerational public transport that's going to connect the Sunshine Coast. We've got planning provision in the Maroochydore City Centre for a premium hotel, the first premium hotel that will occur on the Sunshine Coast when that investment happens. And Councillor Terry also talked earlier about the fact that we are a partner city in 2032 and the Athletes Village will be built in the Maroochydore City Centre. So I think the sorts of organisations that we're seeing at the moment are mostly professional service people, because we are going to need lots of planners, lots of engineers, lots of people with those technical skills who can support the development and the delivery of that infrastructure. And we're also seeing some really interesting new industries. E-commerce has expressed a lot of interest in being in the Maroochydore City Centre, and lots of innovation, and particularly innovation in manufacturing, is something that has that some of those industries have shown some real interest. At this point in time, we haven't got a completed building for them to move into. That won't be until towards the end of this calendar year, when we can start really announcing who those companies are.
Exciting times for the coast. Over to you, Kurt. I think all of us were in awe of what you've achieved, and being only 21, it's very upsetting, but but amazing what you have achieved in your 21 years. So can you tell us sort of how did you become interested in sustainability and the company that you've created?
Yeah, thanks. I think I might take a step back. As educators, you often come across some of those students that are falling through the cracks, that don't know what they want to do, that might come from a disengaged family, and that was me. I was, a student in primary school that went through 6 primary schools, was either suspended too much or expelled from them all, and I suppose that was kind of driven a lot from family trauma and circumstances that were happening outside of school. But then when I came to grade 6, you're preparing for high school, and it became a bit too much. So halfway through grade 6, I dropped out, and I didn't go for school for 2 terms. And obviously, your parents, which I only had one of them, and my grandparents raised me, they're starting to look at, well, what's the options? We've got this kid that's constantly getting expelled. He is just an absolute menace. The teachers love him but hate him. So what are we going to do? So obviously it wasn't an option for me to go to a mainstream school. None of them would say yes. Those one school reports were not looking great. So I got enrolled in a flexi school, a special assistance school. And I suppose, if you're not aware, they're schools that disengaged kids go to, where, they might come from foster home, they might have intellectual, disabilities, they might just be disengaged from their behaviour. And, at that school, for quite a few terms, probably the first year, I was still getting in trouble a lot, ending up in detention, getting sent to the principal's office. But once a teacher come up to me, and I'm so blessed to still be in communication under his mentorship now to this day, but he pulled me aside, and I thought he was just trying to convince me to, get more engaged and pull my head in, but he said to me, "Kurt, you're a leader." he said, you have the potential to do, whatever you want, to be a politician, to be a CEO, to start a business. And I was like, mate, shut up. I'm not going to class. It's not going to happen. But that always stuck with me, and I suppose he and other teachers kept drilling that into me. And over those couple of years, I very much figured out that I wasn't good at maths and English, was constantly failing. I couldn't sit still in the classroom, but I loved going on school camps. I loved going and hiking. I loved canoeing 42 Ks up the river. I loved being outside on the campus, in the bush, building huts, using education in a different way through animal science and trade and sustainability. So I quickly fell in love with, one, my passion for nature and conservation, but then two, a part of that is the leadership and what nature and conservation, sustainability, and actually just being outside, put sustainability aside, can actually do for young people's mental health and their capacity and their leadership. So, over a couple of years, I suppose I came out of my shell. I stepped into my potential as a young leader in high school, and I was a student that was going to the principal, knocking on the door. Why isn't this happening? Why haven't we done this? You've just released a new master plan, and we don't have this facility. Why not? What's wrong with the uniform? Why haven't we not got a new uniform? So I quickly realised that I did have those, I suppose, characteristics of, a problem solver, a thinker, a visionary, and going, from a student that was leading kids, I suppose you might have some of those kids that are called essays. That was me. Like, it's pretty unbelievable when you now look at, a 20-year-old that's running a national non-for-profit. That was me. So if you're struggling with those students, you've just got to come at it from a different approach. You've got to think about them as an individual, someone who is struggling, but just because they're on the spectrum or because they have ADHD, it doesn't mean that they're incapable. It doesn't mean they don't have a future. It's actually thinking, all right, what is this young person passionate about? What does float their boat? What does make them happy? Because for me, that was being outside, that was helping people, that was working with animals, that was, doing outdoor education. So over those couple of years, I stuck to that. I stuck in that lane and I was good in it. And the teachers weren't pressuring me to reach all these standards and bars and TAFE and uni and all these exams. No, I just stuck to what I was good at and hopefully it did well. I then got involved in community volunteering because I just wanted to be a part of change, and I did bush care and I did Australia Zoo volunteering and I did youth parliament at one stage, and I was on local committees, and all of those experiences kind of gave me the Lego blocks to then, when I got to grade 11 and 12, to start figuring out what did I want to do after school, because I wasn't passionate about going to university. I didn't want to go to TAFE, but there is always another option. And for those disengaged kids, it is finding what they're passionate about, not giving them high expectations for all this other rubbish that education puts on young people. Are they an entrepreneur? Have they got an idea to a problem? Like, actually dreaming for that kid, believing in them that can be something that is real for them. Are they creative? Do they love music? Are they someone that maybe should just benefit and going traveling after school for 6 months and going to Bali and seeing all the rubbish on the beach and seeing a turtle in distress and then coming back to Australia and starting a non-profit that reduces waste in the environment? Is it that young person needs to go to Africa and experience disadvantage in its rawest form and then come back and get an idea that's going to spark a change maker that will change an industry and a community for that young person? Actually taking a step back and looking at it, from a more broad approach, that just because a kid is in a special school or a flexi school or a Montessori school or is in a special ed unit at a mainstream school or has ADHD or is on the spectrum, get rid of all the rubbish. What are they good at? What do they love? What makes them a unique thinker? Tackling that, believing in them. And I think that, mate, young people can have the biggest future if we as an education industry and as teachers can actually just look differently, can approach that student more in a unique way and give them a little bit more attention. Because if you don't, they're going to end up in juvenile detention, they're going to end up on the streets, they're going to end up on the couch or gaming for the rest of their life. A little bit more attention, like I got at a flexi school, changes lives. And I think it all comes back to teachers.
Fantastic. I think we have a keynote speaker in our midst. And I think actually in awe of what you've done, but even more so that at 21 deciding to start a not-for-profit organisation. I mean, you mention Essays. Most things with Essays want brands and money and fast cars and so what drove you to want to go into the not-for-profit and do what you've done?
For sure, this is kind of like part 2 to my 5-second break. But when it was grade 11, it was my business assessment to come up with an idea. So obviously it was just for my assessment. We had to come up with your mission, your vision, your values, your business plan. And kids were doing e-commerce, fashion brands, mechanical workshops, beauty salons, and I was volunteering in the community. And I very quickly realised after 3-4 years of community volunteering that I was the only young person present, always. And there are lots of young people that want to create change. They want to get out there. They want to be a part of a community, especially in the conservation, climate, environment space. You look at organisations like Landcare Australia, like Bushcare, like Sea Shepherd. A lot of these organisations are heavily influenced and occupied by retirees as volunteers, or the organisation is directed at one specific cause, marine life for Sea Shepherd, or an organisation that's trying to protect that patch of land, vice versa. But I thought, wow, there's actually such a niche to create a national community where we can raise up young leaders that are passionate about the environment, put them in a role that leads initiatives in their community. So that was my business assessment, and it was called Coexist Australia, and I had this dream to start a network of branches. We call them collectives because branches sound like an old-fashioned word. And it was, we would start on the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane, and then we would expand out and we would get young people engaged in planting trees and building forests and cleaning the beaches and getting them just outside. It's one thing to talk about climate and sustainability and global warming, but man, we've got to take a step back. If we want to achieve good environmental results, why aren't we getting more young people outside? We've got to connect them with nature. And to be completely honest, it's not just about the environment. We're connected with the environment. It's about young people. It's about people. It's about getting our community connected with nature, because yes, that'll have great impacts on the environment and climate, but wow, look at the impacts that'll have on that individual. Loneliness, anxiety, depression, leadership capacity. So I ended up doing a couple of things in senior school. I did a Certificate 3 in Education Support because I always dreamed of being a teacher. I was playing schools in my room after school every day. But I knew that university wasn't an option, and I had this idea from grade 11, and I started to pull other volunteers from other organisations and friends, and we went as the Coexist crew and would go to these other environmental organisations events, and we were the young crew that would come along and help out. And I suppose that morphed. I finished school, got a dream job back then for me, working for Sunshine Coast Snake Catchers straight away as their media manager, managing all the social media, helping with the TV show, and I did that up until May last year. I graduated school 6 months after. I was still wanting to make Coexist a thing, working full-time. Then I went to some board members of an organisation that I was volunteering for and said, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. And they helped me register the charity. Didn't have any money. Come from a very disadvantaged, disengaged family. We registered the charity. We built a board. 6 months after that, I then launched 6 branches straight away in Queensland and in most of the cities and major towns. And, we appointed a leader for Cairns, Townsville, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunny Coast, and we would get those leaders to organise a monthly event or 2 events a month, a recreation, social, community building event, a community hike, snorkeling, those type of activities, and then an action. So planting trees, cleaning beaches, citizen science. And then I was doing that for the whole of 2023 whilst working, managing 250 volunteers. Then I stood into 2024, still working full-time for Sunshine Coast Snake Catchers, and I went over to Perth. We had just started our first non-Queensland branch, and I was walking down the street of the main city in Perth as a kid that's never been to another capital city. Wow, this is so awesome. And I got a call, and this lady said, hello, my name's Lynn, and I work for the Fairfax family. We want to collaborate with you. And I was like, is this just like a beach cleanup organisation that wants to do a beach cleanup with us? Long story short, after 6 months of working and collaborating, $537,000 landed in the Coexist bank account. And in 2023, we had 24 events, engaged 250 young people across Queensland and Perth. 2024, that then scaled. We got the money in the new financial year, so in July last year, I then quit snake catchers went full-time with Coexist, and last year we did 120 events across the country and engaged 1.8 thousand people, so nearly 2,000 young people, and that's 61 beach cleanups, it's 10 tree planting projects, it's 31 community hikes, and I suppose that was a year where someone believed in us, and now we've been able to do more, and that's the same with a teacher believing in a young person. And so far this year, I'm now full-time. We have 3 other paid staff. We have 15 young adults that are in university that are paid as contractors or casuals to run these community events, and it's a movement that's building. I'm now the co-chair of the Landcare Australia Youth Advisory Board, and I'm getting asked to speak at these, national conferences about youth engagement and climate, and the COP conference coming up. Like, there is so much that young people can bring to our community, to organisations, but if we don't believe in them, then it won't happen. So that's the story of Coexist, and it's a big future ahead, not just for me, but all young people, if we believe in them, especially those ones that are disengaged and that don't want to go to uni and don't want to go to TAFE.
Thanks, Kurt. Very very, very inspiring, and I think Sunshine Coast is very lucky to have you here. I am getting. It was always Tracy and Min's fault that they put me up here because I never keep to time. So, but unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we probably won't have time for any questions from the floor. But I'd like you to put your hands together and really thank these local legends.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you, panel, as well. Honestly, you could listen to them all day long, every time that we get to hear from them. But one takeaway is that Kurt went from being expelled and suspended to playing teachers and schools in his bedroom. So if that's not a turnaround, I don't know what is. That's amazing. Look, we're just going to quickly finish off with a couple of things just to keep it moving and get you out of here. Tomorrow we have 2,500 kids coming to speak to all of these amazing industries that we have here on Sunshine Coast. Thank you for organising your schools to come. We can't wait for them to get inspired, exactly those sort of stories. We want them to stay here. We're really excited. They've got great activities. It's going to be a fantastic day. Thank you for getting involved. We are also going to make sure that we connect in with the parents. We have to keep this narrative happening across all of the different areas. We have got a parents webinar that we've moved. We were doing face-to-face, but Cyclone has sort of moved that. So we're doing a parent information webinar the 31st of March. If you can, please promote that. We'll get you additional promotional material. But we'd really love to get that out to them. We really feel like it's a really important message for them to understand as well, to back up exactly what we know our kids are going to see. Please connect on our website. The QR code's on the table. We've got the resources that are on there for you. There's a calendar of events of all these things that are coming up, like Katie mentioned from health. There is going to be some great health career opportunity days. You can find them on that website. Go through and see if you have a student excited about something, have a look there. There's some resources that we've put together as a one-stop shop. You can go and click for parents or for yourselves. And then thank you, basically. I couldn't do this on my own, that is for sure, and I certainly haven't. And I know we have to leave, but I cannot go without saying, firstly, to the Queensland Government, Department of Trade, Employment and Training, thank you, Chantel, Cassandra and Amanda, you've been phenomenal. Our hosts tonight, TAFE Queensland, Renee, Alana, Steve, Ciro and Dan, and the hospitality team, exceptional. Thank you for having us. To Sunshine Coast Council, Councillor Landsberg, Tim and Angela, you've been exceptional. Thank you so much. To Noosa Council, Mayor Wilkie, Vicky and Kelly, thank you so much for your support. And the Noosa Education and Training Alliance, Paul and Vicky as well. The Regional Development Australia, Moreton Bay Australia and Sunshine Coast, Jacqueline and Andy, thank you so much for always believing in us and our support. Our regional committee members, our speakers tonight, White House International, Min, you've pulled off an absolute cracker, thank you. The Caloundra Chamber of Commerce, you got us here. Thank you, Lisa and your team. Our CDC buses, Matt and Lani, they are getting all the kids here tomorrow and they've gone out of their way to make sure that we can get all these students there. So thank you for making that possible for us. Our photographer and to our event partners at EventX, please give everyone a round of applause and we'll finish up. Thank you so much. And with that, it's good night. Please make sure you see our amazing speakers on the way out and we'll start making our way out. Thank you.